Scarefest Radio is sponsored by Spirit Mechanics for your spiritual health and well-being. Find them on Facebook. MECHANIX. And by Coyote Chris Sutton, bringing light to the darkest places. CoyoteChris.com.
The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
And hello everyone, and we're off to just an audacious start. We can't even get the buttons clicked to unmute everybody. Welcome everybody to Scarefest Radio. I'll fix that in post. That's what I'll do. Like I always do. I'm back from the Louisville Supercon. And boy, it's nice to be back at a real computer, though. I got to tell you, not that the Mac isn't a real computer, but to have a studio, to have everything right where it's supposed to be. Today's original broadcast date is December 7th, 2018. I am joined tonight by my co-host, Mr. Chris Sutton, who's on his cell phone tonight, so the video is going to be like everywhere. It's right now like we got half your face right now, Chris. It's
I'll try.
So this is what type of episode it's going to be tonight. And then our guest tonight is Mr. Chad Harlan. Chad, welcome back to the show.
Good evening.
And everybody, of course, now Chad, he's been on the show before. He kind of gave us a preview of his speech at Scarefest this year. Now we don't have to worry about spoilers. We're going to be talking with him about what a fraud investigator can offer the paranormal or some such stuff like that. Little shout out to my new co-host that'll be coming on at some point in the future, Holly LaFavors. You met her last week. The Supercon video, I don't know if the video was hinky as hell. The audio came out great. I cannot believe I produced that quality of audio standing in a convention with 10,000 people. So that part I got. The video's a little choppy, but it's all there. So that'll be posted here real soon if you want to go back and catch that. But we've added another co-host, and a little sidebar there. On the website, there's a Meet the Team page. One thing we're getting ready to add, we still need some volunteers to watch Scarefest Radio, live or archived, and then write us a little blurb about it, 1 or 2 paragraphs. In return for your efforts, you will be an official Scarefest staff member and get all of the perks and stuff that other Scarefest staff people get. So it's like free passes and a t-shirt and my eternal gratitude. What else do you need? What else do you need? Now back to the Supercon, Chris. One thing that I want to do, I'm going to get into now in future conventions. I am going to start doing some of my cosplay. I am going to pull the cosplay and do some characters and draw a little more attention to the booth, if you will.
So you talk about cosplay. You're going to dress up as...
Okay, I've got 2 ready. The voices are better than the costumes, but okay. I anybody that saw the train wreck of a Halloween episode that we did at Winchell's Sports Bar, I've got this Bad Santa outfit. Okay, and with the hat and the white beard around my neck and everything. And no, not this white beard. Don't even say it. I'm learning to head Chris off before he may comment on what I'm talking about. But so I've got Bad Santa. Bad Santa is a very popular one. And if I go into let's see if I can do the Bad Santa voice. Merry Christmas.
Shit, all you gotta do is be drunk and be dirty. Shit,
Yeah.
you got that down.
I do, and I'll carry like I'll put like tea in a whiskey bottle and carry that around. So, but yeah, so there's my bad. So I got Bad Santa ready to go. I'm definitely going to take that to the Supercon next November because it's right at Christmas, so that's perfect for it. The other one I'm working on, and I don't have. I've got the costume, but okay, picture me. I'll wear a hat, farm hat of some type. I haven't decided which one yet. And a set of bib overalls. Let me get my voice going here. My name is Abraham Jefferson Griffith. I am Brandon Griffith's uncle, and I hear he bought him a HorrorCon. That's what I've got so far. So, and I'm gonna look on the map, and to finish out the character, I'm gonna find some really podunk sounding town that's close to where he grew up, so I can say I'm from there. One of those, like Mudlick or something like that. Stinking Creek. There's always some of them. So I got to finish the character out.
There's a town near my mother and father from called Knobblick. That's a perfect spot.
See, that just sounds
right
dirty.
There,
See, you had to go in the gutter. You had to go in the gutter. You just couldn't leave it alone.
It's a nice little town in southern Missouri, and there you go.
So anyway, but I think a little costuming for the Scarefest booth would add a little more frivolity to what we do, because apparently Brandon is not going to hire actual booth babes, because now that's another thing that does work. Cosplay characters in skimpy outfits also draws in the nerds. I do know that for a fact. But if we can't go that route, we're just gonna go full on whatever the hell I can come up with. And
I would say Brandon's misplaced his priorities then.
And if I could if somebody wants to donate a costume to me, I can do Batman's voice. I'm Batman. I can steal all the jokes off YouTube about Batman. But so anyway, that's I do want to take everyone. Okay, now before we get started with the actual interview, one thing I did want to go ahead and do. I am going to thank Brandon and Nicole very publicly. I never get serious on the show, but Brandon is putting a lot of faith in me. He is offering to send me actually too much. He's actually offering to let me travel too much. I'm actually okay. My plans are my next convention would be Lexington Comic-Con, Lexington Toy and Comic Convention, and that's in March, which is bad enough. He's already looking for shit to do in January, and I'm like, make sure it's south. But they are putting a lot of faith and energy into the show, and I want to give them a little special thanks. He's offering this to send me pretty much. He's offering to send me wherever I want to go, but I'm willing to bet that kind of falls through, and it'll just be like, depending on how his MasterCard looks that month. But we are going to be taking the show on the road a little bit more than we have. We've already done it more than we've done it in the past. But that's something, everybody, you will have to look forward to. And when I can't go, we've got two other people in the Scarefest crew that travel around to a lot of these Comic Cons and movie cons and horror cons. Holly, our new host, and Billy Crank does quite a few of them too. He goes to quite a few. So I'm going to try to get Billy on board with doing us a little remote work, if you will, even if he just Skypes in from his phone. So we do have some big plans there, and looking forward to this year. Brandon, actually, and he's not even a paranormal fan, but he wants to go to Michigan Paracon, Chris.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
That everything.
That's a. I actually do a list of places, man. That's they'd be good to go. I just got booked at the HondaCon in Omaha, Nebraska, but that's in March too, though, so that might be a little much. Where am I?
Yeah, I got to rein him into no more than once a month. I got too much other stuff to do. But
that's true.
If we can hit one every month or two, of course, and he's talking about some of the big horror cons. Now I don't know if he's even thinking about taking taking me with him, but he's going to go to Texas. What's the one in Texas? In the chat room, y'all. What's is it Texas Frightmare? Texas Frightmare. I came up with it all on my own. He's wanting to go to that, and there was might do some of the horror hounds. I know they go to them anyway, but it's whether or not we set up a booth or not. Because I'm not going just to be there. Although I can get media passes now because we have like a real website and everything. I'm like media now. So everybody, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our first commercial break, and then when we come back, I promise you, we are going to talk to Mr. Chad Harlan. Now that I got all the welcome home BS out of the way, we'll be right back. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being. And welcome back, everybody. I'm here on my phone. My phone is doing really weird stuff tonight. I'm trying to get the episode retweeted in the modern vernacular. Chad, welcome to the show. Nice to have you back. Well, what was it like presenting at Scarefest for the first time?
It was awesome. It's such a great crew and so well organized. I've been there every year. But it was great to actually be doing a presentation this year. Before we get too far along, though, I will tell you that if you need a booth babe, I'm willing to take one for the team and get my kilt hemmed extra short and be there for you.
Well, I do. You know, that's the best offer I've had. That is the best offer I've had. I got to admit, I'll throw that out there. You should wear your kilt, though. Because you're going to be worked. Well, you know you're going to be worked into the team if you're just doing taking the announcing duties off of my shoulders. So yeah, wear the kilt and do the face paint thing. Do the blue face paint upon. You know, we're in freedom. You know.
Yeah. Full cosplay.
Yeah.
Braveheart.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's get a little Braveheart going. See, we're so on board with all this. Now, of course, now you spoke. I should have went back and listened to your original interview because I'm going to be asking you some of the same questions. I know I am. But first of all, now, what type of interest do you consider yourself having in the paranormal field?
I'm sorry, you broke up there just a little.
Paranormal. Do you consider yourself an enthusiast, an investigator, a ghost hunter? What are you as far as the paranormal?
Probably some of each. I'm an investigator. I'm certainly an enthusiast as well. I'm probably an anomaly, though, because I've been doing this for a little over a decade. I'm probably one of the few people that is involved in the field and actively researching it and studying it and involved that I've really never had an experience that I would say is a confirmation of anything. So I fall on the skeptical side, but very much still interested and hopeful that I will someday find that piece of evidence that does convince me.
So now you've not had a personal experience that convinced you, but now when you see what other people are posting on Facebook, etc. Now, first of all, okay, photographs, I get it. I've seen, now, somebody, if it's a real photograph, somebody posted an absolutely rocking photograph taken on Sachs Bridge down in Gettysburg. And
Yeah.
another piece of evidence that I'd seen from there that I knew the guy, so I knew it was authentic, was really good. But now this one, I can't speak to the veracity of it, but somebody posted a really top-notch, full-body freaking apparition from Sachs Bridge. Now, that being said, because they didn't source it or anything, it could have been a Photoshop or just a cheap 99-cent phone app, for all I know. But have you seen... Let's talk visual evidence. Have you seen any video or photographic evidence that kind of drives you forward in the field, at least?
A lot. I mean, I see a lot of video and photographic and hear audio that's I find very compelling. But my day job is I'm a white collar fraud investigator, and so I kind of run any evidence I see through that filter and look at, could I take that evidence and present it in court? So like you said, do I know the source of it? Do I know what other stuff was happening at the same time? You know, do I have the opportunity to recreate the circumstances and see if it can be debunked? If it's a photograph, do I know if there was a reflection in a mirror from another angle or refraction that could be taking place that could create that effect? Do I know if the digital evidence has been preserved in such a way that it couldn't be tampered with? If even not by the original collector of the evidence, by a third party, that they didn't even know it was being done. So much now we deal with cloud storage of electronic evidence, but there's never a final form to that. So, you know, one of the things I talk a lot about in my presentation was burn it to a final form CD and close the session so that it can never be altered. That way you're protecting your metadata and stuff like that. So yeah, I see a lot of very compelling evidence posted online and emailed and that sort of thing. But without the source data, it's hard to really call that any sort of confirmation. But it does drive me forward to keep looking for that piece that's really going to drive it home.
I'm going to add one thing to what he just said. And this goes out to all of you teams out there in particular. But sometimes this stuff gets posted online that it wasn't actually by a team. It was just somebody who saw something cool on a security camera. But if you're using a DVR system, if you dare post evidence with taking your camera and pointing it at the screen of the TV that you're watching the DVD cameras on, you should quit now and just go watch Ghost Whisperer. Just that I have seen so much false evidence posted because somebody didn't realize, oh, look, my reflection's in the damn screen. So I just wanted to add that. I don't, if I can tell that it's a capture, in other words, a video of a video, I won't even look at it anymore. I've seen too many things that just once we got the actual circumstances, it was extremely easy to explain. Now, before I turn you over to Chris, now the other thing, now audio-wise, I think you'll probably agree, some of the most compelling evidence that I'm going to say anything can be faked, but coming from reputable, solid sources is audio evidence in the form of EVPs. And but now I'm not big on the AVP thing with the cell phone apps. Good Lord, what was that? And there's our ghost. No, the EVP is do you feel the same way about EVPs, that I've heard a lot of EVPs that I cannot debunk. I can debunk a lot of photo and video, but there's a lot more audio evidence out there that I can't come up with any explanation for.
I agree, but if I'm at the site where it's captured, it's certainly easier to accept because if it's just an audio recording of a location where I'm not there and somebody's trying to get me to authenticate it or believe the evidence, I don't know what's going on in the next room. I don't know what's going on one floor above. I don't know who may have a radio that was broadcasting that nobody noticed at the time. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. There's also, it depends on the equipment you're using. There can be radio interference where it's picking up stray signals, depending on the equipment you're using. So there's a lot of variables that can go into it that you still have to keep a healthy skepticism. That being said, yeah, it is harder to debunk some of that. But it's also harder when you review evidence the next day or 2 days later or a week later to remember what else was going on in the room when you might have captured a sound or a voice, unless you're very diligent with noting activities that are going on in the room and stray sounds and extraneous events. And, you know, if you're not there, you don't know how diligently that was done.
Chris, over to you.
Okay, so Chad, when you investigate a white-collar case of fraud, you have certain evidentiary guidelines you have to follow, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, do you apply that? And I know they're strenuous. I mean, I've had to testify in court about things, and, you know, it's not playtime. You have to be able to speak in front of the judge and tell them, you know, exactly where this all came from, X, Y, and Z, you know, and reference everything. Do you keep that same code or that same guideline when you're investigating paranormal events?
It depends on the purpose of my investigation. And that's kind of what I tell people about. There's certain investigations I go on where my main purposes and what I call it is kind of paranormal tourism. I've been to Waverly 6 times, and I'm not going there to try to prove anything. I'm going there for my personal experience. So I'm not going there to try to catch evidence that I'm going to prove to the world that there's an event happening. I'm going there strictly for my personal growth and my personal experience. So I am not going to document that and collect the evidence that way, because I don't care if anybody believes what happened or what saw to me. That is my personal thing. Right. So I look at it.
See, that's the way I invest.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say. So I look at it from a case by case basis. So. And I had a disclaimer on my lecture at Scarefest that if your purpose is to have personal experiences, then a lot of my lecture was not necessarily applicable to you. But if your goal is, and from what you see on the internet, there's a lot of people who this is their goal, is to prove the paranormal is real to third parties. They want to post their evidence and convince everybody that the ghost was walking down the hall.
Right.
That's kind of what I presented this for. And there's certainly been, residential cases and stuff where I've talked to people where they wanted some sort of confirmation. So if I'm working something like that, I try to use a fairly stringent evidence collection so that I can present it to them and hold myself to the standard of, this is what we caught and this is what I can definitely say we found or didn't find.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, scientifically, you want to set up something you can replicate to obviously prove it, to prove any type of theory or anything like that. You want to have replication. And with ghost hunting, those damn guys, they don't cooperate. You know what I'm saying? They do what they want to do. And it always seems to me, I've seen people post things like Wes is talking about. It's ridiculous. Some stuff looks pretty good, but if you were going, what would you expect if you really wanted to prove that there is, what set of evidence would you require if you were the judge to prove that something they actually caught something, whether it's an EVP, an apparition, all these types of things? What do you think a good standard of evidence should be for that?
Well, and first of all, I'll address the first thing you said, scientifically replication. That's one of the things I kind of tell people is I think we use that term a lot, and certainly the TV shows use that term a lot of we're using the scientific method. Especially on criminal investigations, they're not using a scientific method. They're using a forensic method, which is slightly different because, and I kind of made a joke about it, And I do also when I'm training new employees that work for me is you don't want to replicate a murder investigation because that second victim is going to be kind of pissed off when you have to kill them to prove the first one happened.
Yeah, but you got to do what you got to do. Go ahead.
You do. What you want to do from an investigative standpoint is to collect enough evidence of what happened in the past to convince an impartial third party of the event.
Okay.
So what I would look for, and just like one of the cases I work, is physical evidence, if there is any, such as video that the house may have, closed circuit, or recordings they have, witness testimony. Although I will point out that 70 of the first 180 cases, I believe was the number from the Innocent Project, 70 of the first 180 cases that were overturned were convicted on eyewitness testimony. So you have to kind of take for granted that eyewitness testimony is not very reliable. So the person who sits there and tells you they saw an apparition walking down the hallway, they're under a high level of stress with adrenaline pumping through them because they're scared at that time. So what they saw may not be exactly what they saw. It's just what they're processing at that time. But if you have 10 witnesses that saw that same thing, now you're starting to get a little bit better proof. If you have video that is also collaborated by audio and an eyewitness event at the same time, now you're collaborating from multiple sources. And I think now you're kind of escalating it. So you're kind of eliminating the opportunity that it might be a reflection from a video recording that's catching something in a mirror or a window. If you also had eyewitness that saw it and you're catching some sort of EVP, or you're hearing people at the same time reacting to it on the audio recording. So now you're kind of building the steps to put layers of evidence on, especially if the timestamps match up. So I think that's kind of what I would look for.
So like if you had a movie or a video of an apparition with a EVP saying watch Scarefest radio, and you had 4 eyewitnesses all saw this come together at one time, that is that something that you would look at as more favorably on as evidence then?
It would be certainly more favorably. Now you still, at that point, you still have the opportunity that it could be faked and fraudulent. But that's when you can go to the metadata. If the video recording has been protected correctly, then you can see, the metadata is going to tell you the date it was recorded, depending on the equipment being used, but it'll tell you the date it's recording, the time it was recorded, and if there's been any changes to the video since that time. So if the teams are maintaining that correctly when they produce it, they can protect their reputation by showing that it's not been changed since the day it was made.
Well, no matter how you look at it, it's really difficult. And I see we're half past the hour, so it's time for our next commercial break, and back to Wes.
Everybody, you're watching Scarefest Radio.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to coyotechris.com to learn more.
And welcome back, everybody, to Scarefest Radio, your video window into the Scarefest. I gotta come up with a tagline. Anyway, we're gonna give away a 3-day pass night. If anybody wants a 3-day pass night, we're gonna give one away. I think we'll do it on Twitter, just because Twitter is so much freaking easier than Facebook, and I'm just not prepared to deal with Facebook tonight. If you will tag at the Scarefest with hashtag, and it's going to be a long one, get ready, fraud investigation. Fraud investigation. Hashtag fraud investigation. As a matter of fact, I'm watching the Scarefest page, so as long as you tag at the Scarefest, I'll even see it if you forget the hashtag. But fraud investigation, that is what we're looking for to win a 3-day pass to Scarefest 2019, Scarefest 12, Scarefest XII. We don't have a theme yet. We don't have a tagline yet. Anyway, Chad. Now, one thing, since you've been a paranormal investigator for a few years, what has been? Now, you've said you've not had a personal experience, but as far as the data you've collected, what is the most compelling thing that you've collected in your own eyes?
I've had some EVPs where I've gotten names said and sentences telling me to leave locations. But they were anomalies and they weren't terribly clear. So I have a hard time ruling out even my own matrixing on those. Other people listen to them and they're very clear as what they say, but I guess I'm harder on my own evidence than I probably am on other people's.
Well, actually, that's not a bad thing, because I know even on my own stuff, I've got one or two that, are fairly, I consider them quite obvious. But I've had stuff that I thought was, wow, that's really good, and let someone else listen to it. And although they still say it's really good, they'll come up with something different audio-wise, verbally, than what I came up with. And so that's, in other words, I agree with you. That's one of the problems that I've seen. Just like one of my earliest captures was I got a ghost to say my name. And it came across quite well, but I heard Wesley. Played it for somebody else, and they said, well, it said Wesley Forsythe. I didn't hear it. Now, after it was got the what do they call it? The earworm. Then I could hear it after that. So yeah, I do agree with you there. Now, do you work with a team, or is it are you just out stomping around by yourself? What's the story on that?
I usually stomp around by myself, but occasionally I've gone out with others.
But you don't have a formal team that has potluck dinners and that kind of stuff.
No, nothing like that.
Now, is that by accident or by choice?
Probably a little of both. I just haven't had the right opportunity arise yet to really get involved with a set group of people.
That, it's weird, as haunted as like, and I'm not, okay, now, if you're out there and you're listening, I've not seen any teams. Now, I can name you teams in the Cincinnati area, Northern Kentucky area, around the country. I've been in this long enough doing the all the paranormal podcasting stuff. I know teams, reputable teams all over the country, but I actually have trouble putting my finger on. There's one team now that I don't even know their name, but there's one team I'm aware of that works in Lexington that has a good reputation that I know of. Now, that's not to say if I'm going to get all these emails from people that our team's great. No, I'm not saying you're not great people. I'm just saying for some reason I don't see you out there. I don't see the Lexington teams on the chat boards that I used to frequent, and I don't see the evidence posted for. Now I do, because now even though I'm a big one on peer review, I like to see teams post their evidence on Facebook or whatever, or actually I prefer it on their own website, but put it on Facebook. But when you put it out there, be prepared for people to tell you that it's a bug, or it's raining, or it's a reflection. One of my rules, you mentioned it before, evidence caught in any type of glass, mirror, or window has to be freaking outstanding for me to give it the time of day, because there's so many variables. Most people don't realize glass is really not all that smooth.
Yeah, and I think it also, for me, a lot of time, for the most part, it has to be confirmed by a second source. unless I guess there could be an exception to that if it was just an outstanding piece of footage and extremely clear. But it's just so reflective, and prism effects can happen from weird angles from the other side of the glass, where you might not even see somebody outside down the street a little that can show up in the glass when you're taking a picture at it. Especially like you said, when it's not totally smooth. So yeah, you got to confirm it from a different standpoint, either audio or a different angle of the camera or something.
Hey, okay, we've told you about glass. Another thing, people, do not ever send me blurry photographs. If the photograph is the least bit blurry, I don't give it the time of day, and most people won't. Surprisingly enough, if you can't do it, if it's a bad picture to begin with, why would I think it's good evidence? I'm sure you've seen plenty of those.
He'll take any orb pictures you might have.
Yeah. This is go ahead and send me your orbs. Now what actually triggered? We're going to go back in history a little bit. Now, what was your trigger to make you want to investigate the paranormal?
It was the slow escalation. My entire family's from Eastern Kentucky on my mom's side, so I grew up with my grandmother telling me stories about haints. So it was ghost stories every night to get me to go to sleep my whole life. And so that got me interested not only in the folklore side of it, which I still very much enjoyed looking at, but also ghosts. So I kind of just grew into that as I got older. I was always trying to find books to read about the paranormal, all aspects of it. From the time I was in elementary school, I was checking those books out, trying to expand my knowledge. Now, of course, the older I got, the more sophisticated the books got. But
did they really? Did they really though?
I know.
There's a lot of them out there, and I'm sure some of you authors have put out some really great stuff. But out of all the books that I've been sent and given, and a few I bought, maybe 3 that I really felt the person did their due diligence rather than just... That's why I never wrote a book, because anything that I say is going to be bullshit anyway. So why should I... If I know it's bullshit, why should I, put it out there for somebody else to tell me that?
Well, and a lot of what I did was, especially when I was really young, was researching the folklore and myth behind, ghost stories and paranormal stuff, which just really more whet my appetite to look into it more and start. As I got older and had more opportunities and learned more, that's what got me down the idea of starting to want to investigate. But I also, I say I never had experiences. When I was young, I had some experiences at night, but I also had sleep paralysis. So there's no way I would ever say that I actually had an experience and it wasn't hypnagogic,
I believe is the word.
There you go. My speech impediment shows up occasionally.
I'm unusually eloquent tonight. I have no idea.
But yes, I could not ever rule that out and say it was an actual event, but it certainly further prodded me down the path.
Did now one last question along those lines. How did you now this is actually something that I've been asked. I've had a lot of people say, "How do I get into ghost hunting?" And what do I need? But now what you said it was a slow progression, but now when you actually went your early field work, did you just go, well, Bob, your house is haunted, let's go to your house? Or was it a public place? Or where did you get your start? Where did you cut your teeth, I believe is the term?
Some of all. It was in Eastern Kentucky, hanging around some of the haunted areas up in the hills, just seeing if I saw anything or anything happen. It was hanging out in relatives' houses, just trying to look for events. Of course, at that point, I didn't have any equipment, didn't know anything about equipment, but it was just looking for personal experiences in places. As I got a little older, I would start. We started. My wife goes with me or went with me a lot on that, especially. We'd start doing paranormal tours every time we went to a new city. And that was kind of a way, one, to learn the new city, but also to learn the paranormal history and see if we could experience anything. And so that kind of got us a little more down the road, and started reading more and more books about investigative techniques. And at that point, it was really public places. We'd go to public ghost hunts and stuff. And then the TV shows came out. And, of course, I think there's a lot of us out there that kind of prodded us to expand even more.
I'm in that group. That's the badge of honor that real paranormal investigators wear. Is I don't like the TV shows. I did. I enjoyed the hell out of them. I admit it freely. That is what spurred, because watching those is what made me go, if I'm going to sit here in this chair and talk about it, I'm going to go out and do it. And then somewhere along the lines, I ended up here. And now I'm just, I talk about it all the time.
That's certainly what changed me from hanging out in haunted places trying to see if anything cool happened to start and try to document it.
I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris. I just want everybody, nobody has won my 3-day pass. If you have a Twitter account and you want to tag at the Scarefest, the official Scarefest thing, you can win a pass. And nope, somebody liked my tweet, but they did not win a pass, people. Win a pass. I'll tell you what, we're going to take our commercial break, and then I'll turn it over to Chris. Everybody, you're watching Scarefest Radio. He's making a list, and he's checking it twice. But where does that leave you? You've got to come up with thoughtful and affordable gifts for friends, relatives, and coworkers. What to do, what to do. From Scarefest Radio, just click the Merry Christmas graphic in our sponsor links and you will find the kyhorse.com selection of practical and beautiful personalized leather belts, handmade in the bluegrass. It's a Kentucky tradition that fits every Christmas budget. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, we're talking about the shows and stuff, and I was watching, because everybody, they're big bad, stupid Zach and stupid this and dumb shows, and we don't do that kind of stuff. But Dave Schrader made a real good point one time. Dave has a radio show called Darkness Radio, and he also does some work with Ghost Adventures. And he said, because actually what happened was it's a Twitter war, and some friend of mine was involved in, and my friend was ready to get thumped. It's a mutual friend of Wes and mine, Aaron, and this guy was giving Aaron a hard time, and Dave comes on and goes, hey, he goes, if it wasn't for these guys, you wouldn't get to do a lot of things that you're doing right now, because people accept it. If people accept this stuff, all these places you get into now, they would turn you away, or they'd be pulling the shotguns out, saying, get the hell off my land. It's opened the doors for a lot of people, whether you agree with these shows or not. And no matter how bad some of them look, it's made it better for other investigators in the field, and people should realize that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's opened up a lot of locations that were never open before. And it's, for people who are doing residential stuff and trying to help people, it's made people who have issues at their houses willing to contact somebody to come help them. So it's helped people in that way too.
It has, and it makes people realize, although most of the calls I get are, I've got a demon in my house, and I found out it's a methamphetamine habit, and that's you're really dealing with, not a demon. But
Kind of a
Oh,
demon.
you use of one word. I love what's that?
It's like kind of a demon. Sort of a demon.
Well, yes, but it's
Okay,
not.
go ahead.
It's not from the pits though. It's a self-made, ingested demon, and so then they just hate it. When you say, well, I'm sorry, there's no demon here. There's not even a ghost here, because they don't want to realize that the problem is me. They want to be something else. And by God, Zach Bagans is getting a way out by saying there's a demon. They're going to try to take it. And so, and you get a lot of investigators, people who do the spiritual side of this kind of stuff. You get wrapped up in this kind of stuff. And so I'm real leery about doing any house calls these days, but I do them sometimes. But earlier on, you used the word, and I heard Wes and Scott Porter use it, the haint. Stories about the haints. I only have heard that from people from rural, I guess, like Kentucky and Tennessee and down through there. And you said who used to call it that to you?
My grandmother. Yeah, it's certainly an Appalachian word, and a lot of their vernacular comes from. It's very similar to Old English, so I'd say it derives somewhere from that. But yeah. Growing up, especially the older generation, it was never a ghost. It was always a haint.
A haint. I love it. I love saying that word. So looking today, you see a lot, I imagine you look at a lot of the claims that you see a lot of things going on in the paranormal world today with teams and things like that, whether it's on television, on God knows, on social media and all this stuff. If you look out there, Dave, what would you say would be, in your opinion, I'm just asking for your opinion.
Sure.
What is the state of the paranormal investigation today, or paranormal investigators?
I think it's actually good. It's an evolving field. We've got now, one of the things I do tell people is the equipment is an interesting thing, but it doesn't really document anything that we know of right now, because while you may have an EMF meter that is telling you that the EMF is high, until you can prove a ghost is made out of EMF, you're not proving anything. But it may give you a clue as to where to do more investigation, and maybe you can prove it another way. But because of the interest and the popularity of the shows, which has led to more popularity of conventions and seminars and stuff like that, it is pushing the field forward. There's people getting together to talk about techniques, talking about findings, to push research forward. There's new and better and more interesting equipment coming forward. While I don't think, and I like you said earlier, I was hard to prove, or I was hard to convince. While I don't think there's anything out there right now to convince it, science has always had a hard road to prove anything. And so if it is ever going to be proved, it's going to have to go through a long, hard process to find the right techniques and the right equipment and the right methods. And I think that the more scrutiny it gets and the more interest there is in it is what's going to provide the funding and the interest and the personnel who are interested enough in it to focus on it. So I think regardless of what you think about the TV shows and stuff, you can't tell if they're doing a good job or not, because it's all going to be edited and they're only going to take highlights out. They're just trying to make something interesting. So even if they're the most conscientious investigators in the world, they have no control at all over what ends up on that TV show. So you have to take that for what it's worth. They're making entertainment, not doing ghost hunts. They may be doing them in the background, but that's not what's showing up in the TV show. But what it's leading to is a lot of people who have enough interest now to actually do the work in the background. And, Scarefest is a great place where they get together and talk about it and learn from each other and share techniques and thoughts and knowledge and ideas. And so I think it's really advancing the field right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of different people talking like I don't go out to prove anything, but I surely love many people who do. And I like working with people like that. I do my shaman thing. They do their tech thing. I tell you what, one of my favorite old saying is this because we haven't invented a machine that can measure something yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist now. And so, but they're starting to catch up. these, geoports and stuff like that. I have real kind of, I was kind of iffy about things like that. But then I started seeing and hearing things. I mean, I've worked with them myself. And you hear your own name come across, and, not in different ways, and hear other people's names come across that you're standing with. And when you're getting, like 4 or 5 word sentences telling you something, and it comes back, and it's part of a certain, you get almost of intelligence, something, interaction going on. You start thinking, wow, I wonder if there's not something to that. And that doesn't prove anything, but it makes me think that, yes, we're getting closer and closer to the time when we will be able to have the types of machines that will, be able to identify these things without a doubt. We'll know what the energy signatures are. We'll know what this is, that is, all that kind of stuff. Do you foresee that? I mean,
I think, yeah. I mean, I think there's, I think it's just a matter of time, like you said. I think it may be a long way off, and it may not. But like you said, even if we're not close to it, if it's going to take a long time, the equipment that's coming out provides interesting results. And even if it doesn't prove anything, it can be an aid to people who aren't trying to prove anything, who are just looking for experiences for their own personal reasons. Like you said, you're not trying to prove anything when you go out. You're doing shamanistic work. Actually, while I talk about doing this from a fraud investigator standpoint and preserving evidence, because I've trained in that for many years. When I actually go out, unless there's a specific reason for me to collect evidence and try to prove something, most of the time I go out for an investigation, I'm going out for my own personal experience. I'm not trying to collect evidence to prove something to anybody. If there is a reason, I will go through all the proper techniques and make sure all the data is collected and preserved in the right way. But probably 80% to 90% of the time I go on an investigation or a hunt, I am only looking, because like I said, I'm a skeptic at the beginning, because I have not had a personal experience, but I am searching for a personal experience. I want to see the thing that's going to make me know for sure.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's, but yeah, you say like most of the time you don't want, you just want to experience, have fun with it. Plus, man, I mean, and the one thing, and I have to admit, I'm lazy. One thing that turns me up at the tech side, I don't want to sit and listen to hours of tape or watch hours of video, and it would just drive me insane. Yeah. So, I got into the shaman business before I got into the ghost hunting business, so I wasn't really faced with that dilemma. But I look at it now, I say, ugh. I carry a couple little gadgets. I got, my cell phone, and I hate to admit this, Wes will probably laugh at me, which I could care less. But anyway, I got this thing on my phone. I can't show it to you because I'm using my phone. It's called the Necrophonic. And all it is a little geoport. It's you download from your Apple, from the Google store. And I use a Bluetooth speaker with it. It acts the same way. I've gotten some really cool stuff off it. But again, I'm not trying to prove to anybody else. I'm trying to figure out things for me because I might be working on with a certain family or a certain spirit or something like that. And if it makes sense to me, that's all that matters to me. Yeah. I would never put this forth as evidence that this thing exists. In my plane, it does, but I can see why. From somebody who is trying to make a big splash scientifically, it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of the equipment now I think gives people a method to try to narrow in where to do more thorough investigation that could be scientifically backed up. But it also gives people who's doing just fun hunts a way to experience something, or giving people who are doing, important work for people who need help, a way to find what they need to help the people, without having to worry about if they're trying to prove it to the world or not. That's one narrow portion of this field. There are a lot of other portions of the field that are not worried about proving it to anybody. They're only worried about what they need to do, such as helping somebody or personal experience.
Yeah. So as far as your future, I mean, Wes talked about your past, about how you got into this. What do you see yourself doing in the future with this?
I want to keep studying. I want to learn more all the time. That's one of the reasons Scarefest has been so important to me for the last 11 years. It's one of the best places I've found to go spend time with people who want to talk about this, and there's seminars as opposed to just booths to go to. You go to seminars and people are actually talking about techniques and methods and how equipment works, instead of just coming in and telling you about the cool place they went last year. They're actually telling you about how they do stuff, which I want to learn more. And so as far as my future, I want to progress in my knowledge. I want to learn more about the metaphysical side about it. I don't have any abilities, but I want to understand more about how that works and how people who do interact with that and understand it better.
What? I mean, when you're working with a team, I mean, and I'm like you, I don't have a team, but I get asked to work with teams sometimes, or I follow on the team for a little bit. And I mean, when everybody starts working together, you've got somebody who's a sensitive, somebody, you get your tech folks and this, that, and the other, and you start working together. Like if somebody who's sensitive, you can walk into a place, and now here's a good place for you to start. I feel this, and this. And people who have more advanced in their thing will say, okay, let's try this then, And there'll be times where I feel something here. Somebody comes by the millimeter, it shoots up right where I was at, and that sort of thing. So you work together, and also usually senses are really good because sometimes it does get scary in there, and sometimes people have these experiences, and senses are usually pretty good helping people out with those types of things and easing them through that type of stuff. I've seen people who didn't know they were sensitive all of a sudden come across a spirit who is very melodramatic and very emotional, and proceed to put that into the unsuspecting budding empath. And next thing you know, they're in tears. And so that, if you have somebody who's sensitive there, they help them to it and get them all put back together again.
Yeah. It's there's so many different skills and abilities across this field, and it's just great to be able to interact with everybody and learn from everybody else. Yeah.
And you got Wes, who's the master of the dowsing rods, and in his own right is a sensitive and things like that. So he does. I haven't seen him get out much though, Wes. So
it is own right. It is own right. What a way to say that. In his own right. That's a double talk for
you are. I mean,
batshit crazy.
It was very nice of me to say that. Bullshit. No, I was very nice.
We're at the end of the episode. Chad, one last question I got for you. Now, are you going to be putting up a topic to try to speak this year? I know it's too early and you don't know if you'll get to speak, but are you going to apply?
I am working on a couple of topics right now. We'll see if they come together or not, but I'm going to try to put something together on a couple of famous killers from Kentucky. So
that'll get you in, baby. They love the murder. They love the murder at the Scarefest.
We'll see if I can put it together or not.
But who knows? By then, I might be the subject. You might have an in. You might, because
I need a run
that close. Everybody, one last thing I do need to point out: if you're struggling for that Christmas present for that special horror fan in your life, Scarefest tickets. Scarefest tickets are a lovely stocking stuffer for the horror fan in your household, or the guy that works with you, or Bob down the street, whatever. But it's a great time to buy them. You get that out of the way. 3-day pass, or just give them a Saturday pass, just a 1-day pass. Get people to the Scarefest. It makes a big difference. So I covered that, and that's about all I got. Chad, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. And Chris, thank you for being my co-host tonight.
Thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
And everybody, this has been... Yeah. What do you... Oh, he's showing off. Key tag. Yes, if you need a stocking stuffer.
I've got my Chris C&W Western Wear keychain right here. I'm having a hard trouble lining up my camera, but okay, let's go this way with it. There it is. These things are incredible.
And that's actual size, people. It's like a foot wide.
Yeah,
That's
it is. You use this to knock horses out with, if they get rowdy. This is my keychain, and it's very beautifully done. And I got this from Wes and Anita, and I can't recommend their work enough. It's just wonderful stuff.
and
They
you
even
can click,
personalized it, Chris.
you can click the link at scarefestradio.com.
That's right.
Merry Christmas. Click the link, take you right into the website, and they're like $10. Hey, another stocking stuffer. And one more thing, because I did it. What do you think, Chris? How's the winter beard coming?
Oh, look at you now. It's getting there. Yeah.
I actually
Look a little
might.
frosty, but that happens.
Well, that's a life. I actually, but I'm
Well,
thinking.
your head hair's still real dark though. So it's having that little gray with the dark head hair looks good.
Oh, okay. Now I might actually have to not go full on winter beard this year, because if he does start scheduling stuff in January and February, I'm not sure the public is ready for me in person with my full on glorious luxurious winter beard. I'm not Jason Boyd. I am not Jason Boyd.
The public hasn't killed you yet, so I think they can handle the beard.
One final piece of homework for Mr. Chris Sutton. Jumpin' Gene Simmons, The Haunted House. Look it up. Jumpin' Gene Simmons, Haunted House. Listen to that song.
Jumpin' Gene Simmons. Like this Gene Simmons from Kiss?
It's like that, but with Jumpin' Gene Simmons. It's from like 1964.
Jumpin' Gene Simmons, Haunted House.
The year I was born, incidentally.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to do the math. But no, that ain't no haint gonna run me off. It's forever preserved in musical history. Everybody, this has been Scarefest Radio. Thank you for watching. See you next week. We have Alex Vincent from Child's Play is our guest next week, so it'll be a good one.